American Top 40.
And now I have the current smash by the ex-Beatle, who as a kid had a big problem, and that problem was simply staying alive. You see, Richard Starkey was 6 years old when he got appendicitis. So serious that complications set in. He had to stay in the hospital for more than a year to recover. And while he was there, he got out of bed too soon, collapsed while trying to walk, and broke his pelvis. Well, it took about 14 more operations, 3 more years for him to recover completely. And then, as if that wasn't enough, when he was 13, he came down with a severe lung disease and had to spend another year in the hospital. Well, fortunately, he hung in there and became a member of the most successful group of all time. By then, Richard Starkey became Ringo Starr. Here's Ringo with his latest hit. Last week, number 1. This week it falls to number 2. That's Ringo Starr with Photograph.
Casey's Coast to Coast.
Now I have that hit by the multi-millionaire recording artist who fell into a fortune as a last-minute replacement, and the man he replaced was last working as a baker for about $50 a week. The lucky break for this singer-drummer came in 1962 when a 4-man English group had just been signed by the largest record company in the world, EMI of London. But producer George Martin, who was assigned to the group, listened to their audition tape and then told them they'd be making no records unless they replaced the drummer. So the boys held a quick meeting and made the decision to replace Peter Best. A decision that affected the pop culture of the entire world. And the man they chose to replace Peter was the drummer from Liverpool, Richard Starkey. Here he is at number 5 this week with You're 16, Ringo Starr. In 4 short weeks already at number 5. That's headed toward number 1, Ringo Starr with You're 16. Next up, I'll have America's number 1 soul song.
The hits from coast to coast.
You know, American Top 40 is heard coast to coast and around the world on great radio stations like KKUA, Honolulu, Hawaii, WKEE, Huntington, West Virginia, WKIK, Leonardtown, Maryland, WKVO, Havelock, North Carolina, and Hong Kong Commercial Radio. At number 17 this week, former top 10 record by Ringo Starr titled Oh My My. Ringo Starr with Oh My My on AT40 this week, coming in at number 17. 16 hits to number 1 and counting down.
The hits from coast to coast.
This is Casey Kasem in Hollywood on American Top 40. And you know, back in 1970 when the Beatles split up, nobody would bet that all 4 of them could make it as solo acts. They'd bet that 3 of them could, but not 4. And that 4th Beatle had no more confidence in himself than the critics did. He said, and I'm quoting him, I sat in the garden at home for a year because it was hard for me to get started on my own. The other guys had something to fall back on, but I was starting from scratch. John and Paul could write, and they were mainly producers of our records. George had also written some songs, but I didn't know what to do. End of quote. Well, he tried acting in a movie or 2 without winning any Oscars, and he made a couple of albums that didn't get off the ground. Then he teamed up with record producer Richard Perry, and life has been rosy ever since. He was the Beatle least likely to succeed, but this song puts him in a close second place for Beatle with most top 10 hits. Paul McCartney has had 8, and this is Ringo Starr's 7th. No song backed with Snookeroo.
And then it makes it hard to find a door.
Ringo Starr's 8th chart record as a solo artist. At 24 in the countdown, the No song. I got a letter here from a listener in Texas who wants to know what number 1 song stayed on the chart the least number of weeks. I got details coming up.
The hits from coast to coast.